Didn't mean to hold up the process. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. And the first thing on the agenda is the invocation. Would anybody like to do it tonight? Maxine, would you like to do it?
I will do it.
Thank you.
It's. Please stay standing to the pledge afterwards. Dear Lord, we come to you tonight to do city business as we have been doing. And we ask that you give us the right words to ask so that we get the right information, so that we can do the right thing as the city leaders of Walnut Grove. And we ask that everybody remain calm about everything throughout our meetings, because that's very important that we uphold the pledges that we've recently made. And we thank you for bringing us all here safely, and thank you for taking us home safely. And we say all of this in your name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, everybody is in attendance. You're all here. Next thing on the agenda is agenda approval.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
A few things to add. Sorry.
Can I get it? I need a copy of the agenda.
Then I'm not leaving there with you. I got extras, Jeff.
I'm two. So.
Thank you.
We all set? Okay. Under new business, I need to add number 3, obligate ARPA funds to the wastewater expansion project. Number 4 is authorize PPI Precision to submit application to GIFA, including all necessary updating to environmental documents. Authorize PPI to submit application to GIFA, including all necessary updating to environmental documents.
I need to say it again if you don't mind, please.
Authorize PPI to submit application to GIFA, including all necessary updating to environmental documents. Okay. And number 5 is Georgia City's Week resolution. We're doing that at the other meeting. Okay, we're not gonna do this. But thank you for your approval. Okay. We're gonna start the night off with Emerald Cove. Figuring out what we're gonna do.
Do we want to approve the agenda?
No, right, approve the agenda, thank you.
So I will make a motion to approve the agenda with the following changes. Added to new business is number 3, it's obligate ARPA funds to wastewater expansion project. Number 4, authorize PPI to submit application to GIFA, including updated environmental documentations. And number 5, Georgia Cities Week resolution.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all in favor, unanimous. We're gonna go ahead and move on to Emerald Cove, and we have invited Falcon Design here tonight. We have invited Turnipseed, and Michael is here from Turnipseed. We invited Precision Planning. Jimmy was not able to be here tonight. And we invited LNMO, and Aaron was supposed to send me a documentation that he is coaching his son's game tonight. And I never received that in the mail. So what we have tonight is we have Michael here. And I'm going to open up the floor to discussion. It's unfortunate, but quite honestly, I'm not surprised the way that we've been working with these engineers and putting them off and, wait a minute. Could that be someone? Yep, okay, it's Tina. Okay. Michael, if you would you come on up? Do you have familiar, like, you have knowledge of Emerald Cove? You've seen the road?
Yes,
Yeah, okay. Would you just share with us, you know that there were concerns about the paving of Emerald Cove and that, I know the mayor contacted Turret Seed and I know you guys submitted a bid and the bid was, in excess of $800,000 that included engineering fees. Thank you, Joe. That included engineering fees. And if you would, could you just share with council what you and the company feel like, what were issues with the road and what are ways to resolve those issues?
okay, so when the previous mayor had contacted us and talked to us about it, we received some documentation from residents of the neighborhood complaining about particularly a large lip at the edge of the asphalt where it meets the gutter, which is causing issues with cars or just handicapped people in the neighborhood. And so overall, not good construction process. So that was, from what I recall, what was the issue. And then I actually went out and drove around, looked at the neighborhood, saw what happened. The asphalt on top of it looked put down well, but as was clear, it was just put up on top. It was not built down or anything else to the edge of the curb to make the surface flush. And then looking at more details on the road, we've gotten pretty lucky because I was looking at Google Maps, just looking through it, and it happened to be that the car that was taking the picture on Google Maps was there when they were tearing up the road. So that was very fortunate. It gave me a chance to see what was beneath the asphalt, which seemed to have no foundation. And so that was likely what caused the initial paving, where there was a lot of cracks in the road, which is why it was paved initially. And it seemed like, from my understanding, when they did put the asphalt over it, they tore up, it looked like some of the areas that had the cracks and then just put asphalt on top of all of that. So that to us seemed like what the issues were with the road. And you have the sides that were high initially, we were thinking just mill it down potentially. But then seeing that there was not a foundation, what's likely to happen is those cracks will come back again in the not too far future, because again, there's no foundation to the road. And so it seemed like there was a desire to try to look for a long-term solution, not just mill it down and say this will be good for now, and then potentially those cracks come back. So Turnip Seed recommended in the cost estimate we provided, which I have more copies here if you want, is
You would share that.
I would like to see it. Thank you.
I know. Whole council all has seen this report.
okay. And then I can go ahead and pass this out. We drew up just some detail of what the road currently looks like, just to help visualize it, and two potential solutions to fixing the road. So there is the more conventional method has been done in the past and is tending to be phased out in certain areas of where you tear up all the road, and then what we would do is put JV gab on it to act as the foundation and then repave. And there's a newer process. I said usually it's about 20 to 30 years old. And so it's been tried true. That's becoming more popular, called full depth reclamation. And this would be a bit cheaper and I think potentially more long lasting for the road. And what they do there is they essentially will have this machine that tears up the road. And as it does it, it will mix in water and cement and pour that back in. And so you're recycling what's already there, a lot of material, but you're mixing it with the cement, which strengthens it, and that acts as the foundation. And then you'll pour on those top layers of asphalt. And so that's what Turnkey engineers have recommended, is using that full depth reclamation process to essentially redo the road, use that as the foundation, which will help for long lasting problems. You don't have those cracks show up here, and then in repaving the whole thing, but also pave it correctly where it would be flush with the gutter.
Is that the $894,000
Yes,
prospect with full depth reclamation?
yes, ma'am.
Right now, the road already has cracks and potholes in it every year.
Okay.
If we leave it this way, how soon, in your professional opinion, do you think we are going to have to do the full depth reclamation anyway?
Yeah,
How long do you think the road could possibly last?
wish I could give you a good estimate on that, but I don't think I can off the top of my head about how long it could last. Yeah, for several reasons, one of them being roads are different, and so there could have been other issues potentially with water getting in, but it seems like the foundation's a big one. But yeah, I just, off the top of my head, unfortunately, I can't provide an estimate. I can say that
That's what most engineers have told us. The issue with the road is that we talked about paving in the gutters. What is your, what information could you give us if we were to just leave the road as is and pave in the gutters? What do you think would happen?
I mean, the gutters are clearly for stormwater drainage purposes. So it could, depending on how the gutters were sized, you could have more flooding issues. It might not drain the water as well, but I mean, it depends on where the neighborhood is in the basin, because it might be fine as well. But again, and so it could be okay, but then it wouldn't fix the future problem of the cracks coming back from the lack of foundation, but it could help with the temporarily just that lip on the side.
I know a lot of other engineers that I've spoke to about it, they say there's going to be cracks in between the two. And with the expansion and contracting with hot and cold and water, it's surely gonna crack. Do you have the same opinion?
Yeah, I mean, if you've seen probably new paved roads, wow, this is so nice to drive on. And a couple months later, it's not as nice, but it's still good. And so looking at those pictures of the previous road before it was paved, there were a lot of cracks, and cracked roads will have cracks, just how I think in houses, foundations, sometimes you see cracks, and if you get from a professional opinion, you're like, oh, that's just the expansion that happens. And so it's similar with roads, you're going to get cracks, but then there's a certain amount where it gets pretty bad, which is what it looked like before, where there could be issues with drainage, the road is old, or the lack of foundation.
I think Councilmember Love was asking about in relation to paving in the gutters, what kind of cracking
Okay.
or ill adhesiveness could we see if those gutters were to be paved in? Like, or could we expect it just to crumble and fall down our streets, or can we expect it to stay put?
That's a great question, and I honestly don't know, because that's not something we've done before.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, I can give you.
Thank
you.
That's a good question. Have you ever, as a company, paved into the gutters?
Not that I'm aware of.
Have you been aware of people doing that, other than like on city roads or like out?
No, we actually recently did a project with full depth reclamation where they had previously paved into the gutter, and we removed that and made it flush with the gutter, but I'm not aware of any.
How was that process? Because we were wondering about that. If we paved into the gutter, when you go back to pave again, is it more expensive trying to get it out of the gutter, cement gutter?
Yes, it would like maybe a bit more, I mean, not substantially, because you still have some of the same equipment out there, but it would be more equipment because you couldn't have this full depth reclamation vehicle. You wouldn't want that tearing up the curb, like it would with the rest of the road.
Right.
You'd have a different vehicle doing that. Like, I think they might have that vehicle out there already some, so I don't think it would be a substantial cost difference.
How come there is no base? Is that how they did it back in the day? They just came in?
Part of it is that depending on the roads, where it is and what the ground is like, what they thought the ground might be like. There might not always be a base there. Probably for any new constructions, we recommend having a base. So.
Some of the stormwater drains, in Emerald Cove, the pavement on the road. So here's the road, here's the stormwater drain and the curb. And the pavement is just as the same height as the stormwater drain. So if we were to pave in those gutters, what issues could we have?
So that would just, it would cause, depending on the area, I mean, it wouldn't drain well, so it'd be a bit of pooling of the water if it can't drain down into it. But it could be a little puddle, could get a big puddle, just depending on the area, but it would be up to whatever, like, level of water drain to. So it wouldn't, unless the whole area is sort of below, only what's below the gutter is where the water will pool. Anything above that would still be able to flow in.
How steep would the road go off into the gutter? It would be at the top, right? So it would just be a very steep drop off from the road
It
to
depends
the
on
river.
if yeah, I mean, you could have it go flatter straight into the curb instead of trying to go down to the bottom of the curb. You could have it go flatter across to the curb and still have some drop drainage. I'm not sure exactly the contract. I think they probably would be doable to do that same thing for the drain area where you have to essentially make the drain a little bit smaller because of that.
In your opinion, what is the correct way to fix the road?
So, in my opinion, long-term, it would be full depth reclamation, is what I would suggest. But obviously, that's a big expense. It's not cheap to do that. It's a lot of road in the neighborhood. And so it's easy for me to say that, whereas you guys have a budget you have to look at. And so I'm not sure what the cost of doing just the size would be or how long it would last. But in terms of long-term, because it's not just an issue of the edges being too high, but also the foundation seems to not be there. The full depth reclamation seems to be best.
When you say long-term, how long-term would it be lasting for full depth reclamation? What kind of life expectancy do we have on that kind of work?
Great question. It would. I don't have a number off the top of my head.
If you had to guess,
I
20 years, 10 years?
Yeah, I want to say probably 20-ish years. But again, that goes into a lot of factors. It'll last more than not having a foundation. And I think it'll be a little bit cheaper than doing it the conventional way. And both of them would be, both the conventional or full depth reclamation, I think that would be long lasting solutions. Right.
So the conventional method is you're talking about just going in, milling up about 3 inches to get it down below and then paving.
Well, yeah, it's milling up and then you still need to put a base in. And typically that's the gav material. So you have to mill out what's there, haul that off, then pay to bring in the gav and then do the asphalt. Whereas with the full depth reclamation, you don't have to haul off as much because you're recycling it. So that's why it's about, if you did the conventional, a rough estimate, you could expect 10 to 20% more expensive. So that's part of the fees.
Doing it conventionally is more expensive than the cement.
Yes.
Because you're not recycling that one.
Yeah, right, you're still bringing in the gap, so you're still bringing in more material,
Mhm.
and then you're having to pay to haul off other materials that you would have left there already. So that's why this method has become popular, is because it is a bit cheaper and you get that strength.
Is it popular in Georgia in the south, like in areas or even areas where it's cold? No issue?
Yes, I'm not sure about farther, like how far north
Mhm.
it's used, but yes, this is our go-to for, so I've been working at the company several years, and when talking about this project, I talked about it with one of our vice presidents and president. We've been doing this for decades, and they both said that this is one of those things, we tend to like the tried and true method for our clients because we want to give them reliability. And they said this is one of the things that came in and really just has been better. And it's what we would usually recommend unless there's some reason not to.
The material that you'll have to haul off, is it possible to take that to a dirt road in our city and spread it on?
I'm not sure, but that's a good question. I could come back and get you an answer for it, but sure.
We don't need it like pressed down or anything, just let spread out.
Right. Yeah, it could be, yeah, potentially, but I guess depending on the material, yeah, it would be dirt and then also part of that asphalt. I don't know how that would, I think, but potentially.
When you pull it up, does it get chunked up or is it in big chunks?
I've seen the process. I was getting pulled up now with the full depth reclamation. I'm not sure how much, because there still is some hauling off, but much less. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm not sure about the
Okay.
chunks.
If you would, could you get back to me
Absolutely.
to see if it's an option? So you have a 10% contingency on there and then engineering is around 10%. The inspections are done by you guys?
Yes, we do. We have inspectors and this cost goes towards them to be out there to check.
The pavement investigation and testing is, what is that for?
So that's not us. We do that. So part of that is particularly with the full depth reclamation. You want to get samples of soil to figure out what level of cement to put in to really make sure you're putting in what needs to go in so that it will last long. So that's one of the big things is soil testing beforehand. And I believe they might also do the testing of the pavement afterwards to make sure it's up to similar inspection, to make sure they're putting it in correctly towards the spec that it should be at.
You have a project manager on site when this is going on?
So we go for in the construction or the geotechnical?
When they're there paving.
Okay,
So
so
the job.
the inspectors is who we would have on site. This would be bid out to another company who would be doing it. So the inspectors, we have, when we're doing the design, so we get plans and then we prepare the specs. So that details, in words, what needs to be done. So the inspector will be out there asking questions, looking at things, making sure, like their job is to make sure that the contractor does what you and what, we've asked them to do.
In the paving of a road like this, is it typical to have somebody out there inspecting on site, making sure that the project is going smoothly? If they notice an issue, they can stop it or fix it. Is that just typical of what projects
Yes.
cities are, especially through a city?
Yes, the inspection's pretty normal. I mean, the inspector might not be there the entire time. So the person's out there, but we keep in contact with the contractor, say, if there's certain things, are you doing this day? Because we really want to make sure we're out to see that happening,
Right.
and things like that. And so to make sure we're out there for things that could go wrong, or and then every once in a while popping in just to make sure it's
Engineering and oversight throughout the whole project.
yes, exactly. And so yeah, and so we would still be if there is some inspector or contractor has a question, something weird pops up, the engineer could be called and then would continue, help out there, make sure the project
Mhm.
ends up going how we planned it to go.
Would you ever recommend to a city, just go find a paving company and have them paved without it being engineered?
That's a great question. I know there have been projects like that we've done before,
Mhm.
you know, in the city's best interest to help us pay. I'd have to see how much, talk with some of the people who've done this more to see how necessary it is for this type of project, or could you get a contractor, the city to say, get the geotechnical on their own.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure. I could get back to you on that as well.
How long would a project like this take? Because it seems like you're going through, you're doing half the road at a time, I hope.
So yes, that would depend on contractor spec to make sure that obviously access is available on. But yeah, we'd have to probably talk with the contractor, see what's most, efficient and usable.
Mhm.
But right.
That's a deep, you're going down deep. But
Mhm.
if you're actually paving at the same time that you're going down deep, digging up and then mixing and putting it back down,
Mhm.
how long does it take to dry?
The drawing, in total, I'm not sure. So I have like a total project time. I know it doesn't need to like fully be like the contractor afterwards for this process goes out in the water, the road some, but during that it can be driven on. You don't have to wait until the whole process is done before the road.
So people out there with handprints, it's not an issue, right? Okay.
Right, sometimes, yeah,
Got it.
after some initial period,
Okay,
it can be driven on.
okay.
But if we were to say, so you guys set terms, so we want you guys to do the project and we want it done as soon as possible.
Mhm.
So we'd start working on it right away. We would expect about 6 months before it goes to bid. And then after bid, it'd be about maybe 4 to 5 months of construction. And that would be the whole process.
Mhm.
So 6 months for the engineering is a bit conservative, realistic.
Mhm.
So a little less than a year is what we expect.
A long time.
How many feet of road has to be paved?
So it's about over, I think it's about 7,000 feet. It's a bit over a mile of road that needs to be paved.
Mhm. I've never heard of that process before. I was wondering about some. Have you read that?
Yes, I read, and that was going to be one of my questions, was that something that would benefit us? I don't have too many questions. I had some comments I was going to make that I want to share with council when we're done with this.
Does anybody have any other questions? Okay, thank you very much for coming and answering our questions.
Thank you.
We're trying to get down to the brass tacks of this and get this figured out, and it may take a little bit of time.
Yes, we do everything now. I'll get back to you on those questions I couldn't answer.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time tonight. Never heard of that before.
No.
Make some comments here.
It's open for discussion. This is your time,
Well,
guys.
I didn't know if you can have Joe come up, and I thought, oh, so, okay.
Probably like a planning man, or what's the planning man.
Yeah, I'm kind of approaching from a different aspect of this, since I never had the opportunity to ask the experts the questions. I haven't been involved in any of that process. So I've had to go about my research quite differently. So I've reached out and reached out and reached out and read. And I have so much data. I just wanted to bring just a few statements that have come up over and over again as I talk with these different people or email or whatever the case may be. In some cases, they were able to see pictures of our situation. In other cases, it was just me giving a description of what we've got. But some of the things that stood out to me in all of this, I'm just going to kind of read them because that way I don't misconstrue. So curbs and gutters are the raised and slanted section at the edge of the road. Curbs provide a visual barrier for the edge of the road as well as helping reinforce the pavement at that point. But the edge of the asphalt road is at its weakest point there, which means it's more susceptible to damage caused by vehicles that drive on it constantly. So with the height, let's say you decide leave it like it is and do just driveways or something, you're dealing with, because that edge is that high, and of course, it's more likely to be breaking off and things, from what I understood in talking with. So the weight of the vehicles actually push the asphalt, causing that part of the surface to crack and crumble. And so therefore, if we're paving like into the gutter, we're different materials, which can create a little more susceptible to cracks and things. The fact that the gutter portion creates a channel that directs moisture runoff into specified collection points such as sewers and storm drains. Sitting water on the surface of an asphalt road can wreak havoc on the material, causing it to crack and separate. Proper moisture redirection is a must in order to protect the surface and maintain its longevity, and that's part of the purpose in the gutters. Dealing with damage to curb and gutter on property is very frustrating. I'm just quoting some of the things I have. It says milling down and feathering will soon break off and be ugly. That should have been first. That ship has sailed. There should have been milling at the terminations ahead of the overlay. The milling should have been done first, and every time an overlay is used. If the pavement is not even with the gutter, this step represents an unsafe condition, and eventually the owner of the road will be sued for personal injury. This person said, I quite often see drainage problems arise in subdivisions and residential streets where repaving has reduced or eliminated stormwater conveyance in the gutter pan. Sometimes it even causes runoff, which used to stay within the gutter, to jump a curb and go down someone's driveway or other places, creating a drainage problem that did not exist prior.
Could you repeat that part? I'm sorry, about milling down and filling in, should have happened first, and something else you said.
Milling down and feathering will soon break off and be ugly. It should have been done first. The ship has sailed. And then there should have been milling at terminations ahead of the overlay.
Mhm.
The milling should have been done first, and every time an overlay is used. So I guess what they're saying is every time you come in to repave, you need to be milling first.
Right. And
If the pavement is not even with the gutter, the step represents an unsafe condition.
it could cause us to be subject to lawsuits.
Right. And then it says anytime an overlay is specified adjacent to curb and gutter or even guardrail, edge milling or full width should be specified. Any prudent paving contractor would have pointed this out at the pre-bid or after the award. Now, I want to make a note here that I did hear that the contractors that were out there at the time they were paving called and asked about should they mill more, and suggested that it did need to be milled more. So I don't know that for a fact, but that was the information that
They did call and ask, who did they talk to?
I was told they talked to the man.
Who told you that? Because I don't think so.
Well, I'm just telling you, I was told it, and I've heard it in the council meetings stated, I believe, earlier. And I'll have to go through my emails and things.
Yeah, go through your emails and let me know who told you that.
There was a gentleman that came to a council meeting that said that he called in the middle of the paving and spoke with the mayor.
That would be Ray and Rose Hearted.
And
All I'm doing, Linda, there is saying that I didn't want to be throwing the contractor under the bus there. So I was saying I did hear that did occur. So I was getting ready to that. I don't know that that's true because I didn't hear it for myself. So that was all I wanted to do, was to make sure that I wasn't throwing the contractor under the bus in that. So I just wanted to share that information, that, just some of the comments that, I heard over and over again, multiple times in different ways, and I chose those to share.
Do we have any other questions? I have a couple of statements I want to make. We just asked about what is the generally acceptable or traditional way of dealing with projects like this, and usually it's with an engineering company. That's what we learned from this project, and we attempted to get RFPs put out to hire an engineering company to have them come in and offer up solutions or what we could do for Emerald Cove. And that was nixed. That was, the administration said, no, that's not going to happen. The difference between hiring an engineer, an expert, and actually doing it myself. I'm not an expert. And I have the letter here that was sent from the city to the company that did the paving. And in this, there was no discussion about milling down the edges. It was more, let's just go ahead and get it done. As we just heard, if somebody moved that road, it was way above the gutters already. And then in a lot of areas, not in every area, but when they came through and they paved again, in some places it's 6 inches above. There's no question that it was done incorrectly. There's no question that it is dangerous for the citizens. There's no question something needs to be done. We can't sit here and argue back and forth. A viable solution was brought in to bring in an engineer to have them come up with a solution that can work within the budget of the city. And that's still on the table. This was done over almost 2 years ago.
Right.
I hope that as a council, we are able to figure out what is in the best interest of our citizens, learn from this mistake. It was a big mistake, a financial mistake, but it was a mistake. It was done incorrectly. And if we come up with a solution that is just a Band-Aid, then we are still making a mistake, in my opinion. And that is why it is my hope that you all can come up with a really good solution to move forward with this, resolve this issue for the citizens who live there, and so that the other citizens within the city can see that this council can work together to resolve issues in the citizens' best interests. And know that by doing this for one, we're going to do for all. We're going to make sure we do it right the first way. And do the best job that we can doing that. And that's all I want to say.
And previously, in past administration, didn't council make a motion that we are going to be moving forward with an engineer?
Yes, we did. We put out an RFP. We had 2 companies come in within the limits and the time constraint. And both LNCO and Falcon came in with quotes to do the engineering. And it was brought to a council meeting. And the council was told that discussion on how Emerald Cove corrective paving will be completed is closed. As city administrator, that's it. And actually, as city administrator, he's looking for a quote for the gutter paving. And that was his recommendation. It's this email right here.
Has the new council members, have y'all been privy to the LMCO information and the Falcon information?
Yes.
Everybody has.
Yes, ma'am.
And Mayor, I have to say, I'm of the mindset. I'm going to say the same thing I said before I was on council when I was asked, even by Mayor Moore when he was here. He asked me my opinion of what I thought should be done. My first answer was to him was do the right thing. And that while cost is important to us, in one sense, it does not matter. Because if you do the wrong thing, it's going to cost us regardless. So we must, in my opinion, we must do the right thing. If the right thing is to do what Turnip Seed has recommended, and I don't see anybody else here recommending anything, you know, for me today. This is my first opportunity to pick brains, and I understand, and I've tried to keep up with it as best I could. And I tried to do my own homework and listening to all the comments. That's why I wanted to share my comments that I had found out, because they're all saying the same thing. They're saying the more you do the fix, the more problems you're gonna have down the road. So it appears to me that as much as I hate the idea of the amount of money, that that's the right thing to do. No, I don't want to spend that kind of money on the city, but we are where we are. And we have no option except to make a choice. We can sit on it and leave it just like it is and take our chances on lawsuits and everything else, but I don't think that's the right thing to do. We can pave the gutters and take the chance on the additional lawsuits from people having yards flooded. And because we're redirecting the water, or that we have to clean out our drainage system because it starts breaking up. And based on one of the comments that I received, that water sitting on top is going to create problems with asphalt. That says to me, just common sense, that that area is going to break up a whole lot faster than will the road, which means it's going to be washing down our drains. And somehow that seems to me like that's probably going to cost us a whole lot more in the long run, and not a short, you know, not a long-term long run.
It wouldn't be. There's already potholes on the side of the roads, cracks all on the side of the roads. I walk the roads often, and there are cracks all in the road, and it's really unfortunate when you see a giant pothole on the side of a 2-year-old road. I don't think the question is of. I don't feel like there's a question of, you know, if we're going to fix it. I feel like, in my opinion, it's got to be fixed. What is our next step in making a decision?
You all can decide to go with the current quote. You can send it us to bid again with specific instructions as to what you want to see from an engineering firm. You can send it out to bid to paving companies who have project managers and engineering people on board. You all can decide to do whatever you want to do. It is up to you.
Do we know if Falcon and LMCO are still honoring the bids that they gave us?
I know when I spoke with Jimmy that the price of pavement has gone up. So I doubt it, but I did not ask those questions when I spoke with them. What I can do is, and I don't know what they want to entertain for a different phone call from, but hey, I can send you all their phone numbers, their names. They are very happy to talk with people. I don't know what happened tonight with Mike, but he normally is here at these meetings, so that's not usual. But we can do whatever you want. We can go with completely different engineers. We can go with any engineers you want. Get us a list. We will send it out in our whatever. and go that way. Or we can go with what we have.
I think we have enough information now. I think what we need to do is reach back out to Falcon and LNCO and Precision and ask them for an updated current bill based on the parameters that we already set from prior council, and then compare notes. Then that's my opinion, because we can't wait a year. The city is on the hook for this mistake, and if we endure a lawsuit because somebody gets hurt or somebody has an accident or rips their wheel off, which is what couldn't happen because of those 6-inch drops into those gutters. we're doing a disservice to the other citizens because those lawsuits will be in the billions if we're not careful. Depending on how hurt somebody gets, and we need to cover our six at this point.
Mayor, let me ask you a question. The bids you were speaking of, are those bids that were that were, I hate to say, but hardcore bids, doing the whole project with what we're talking about, the full, like, whether it's the reclamation.
This right here is only engineering. It is not the whole project.
Right.
So it's only engineering. That's what we sent out for bid. It's the
Okay.
Engineering company.
Do we need to get bids for the whole project? That's what you gave us, right? For the whole project?
So this is a cost estimate, so it would go out to bid for contractors.
Yeah.
And this is about what we would expect for the contractors to do, and then the contingency engineering inspection.
And we normally see the same, everything from the other.
So it's a two-step process. You're going.
So this is more or less to determine what the RFP will contain.
This will be to get an engineering, we'll put out an RFP for an engineering company. And then once we have chosen, you have chosen an engineering company, that engineering company will go out and put out bids for paving.
Right.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay. That is what would happen. We're gonna go ahead and stop discussion as long as everybody is satisfied. We've had enough discussion. I will send you those names and numbers. If you would like them, let me know. We'll come back to our council meeting on 4/11. This will be on the agenda, and hopefully council will be able to come up with a motion on what you would like to do to move forward. And I do recommend y'all talk to each other. Okay. Thanks, guys. Thank you. And Michael, the lone man, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Do appreciate it. It was nice to be able to ask some questions. Okay. That being said, also then I have endless emails, notes, everything having to do with the paving. This is probably one for it. Just remember, mistakes happen. They happen in our lives. So,
Figure that.
yeah. All right. I'm going to move on to the next thing, and that is the audit for 2023. Just want to let you all know that will be on the next agenda for adoption. Our auditor will be here to present the audit to you. And if you have any questions, you are welcome to ask him at that time. And you all have a copy of the audit. I know our city clerk was able to get you a hard copy. Yes. Okay. Any questions on that? Yeah. Okay. The text amendment ERU, we are going to ask Joe to come up and work with Amanda.
Good evening, y'all, again. So to kind of do a quick background, back in 2023, starting in April of 2023, the mayor had asked for the one particular part of the land development ordinance to be amended to change a number in the definition, which is part of, most of you know, it's ordinance 2021-09. It's the famous sewer ordinance, but it's part of your land development ordinance, so it was added in there to reduce the number from 250 gallons per day, what's called an equivalent residential unit, to 210 gallons per day. So without going into the wherefore and why else, it was taken up, planning commission had a public hearing on it in May of 2023, and council discussed it in the 629 work session, and then it was approved at the 713 council meeting, which several of you were present at that. So since then, in some discussions with Jimmy Parker in our office, probably some others, and with some new thoughts on it, was thought that that was probably not the wisest course, because you're taking out some of your capacity buffer in case there are high users. So, so that discussions were held in early January, February. So what I have done, just for you all to figure out the process, is to basically redo a letter and redo the amendment ordinance document and then the sample public notice. So if council chooses to take that back up and send it through, you've got all the information you need. And I shared that with some of that information with Jay, who I believe sent an email today, which I kind of read in my travels,
Yeah.
as far as getting their input on the timing, since the land development ordinance doesn't necessarily have to follow the zoning procedure law for notice. However, it's been the city's practice to provide notice, sufficient notice for public hearing, so everyone's aware of what's going on. You hold a public hearing, and then you follow your procedure for acting upon the ordinance. Is that an accurate statement?
Yes, and so land development ordinances, so the general law is that anything affecting properties is a zoning action. You gotta follow the zoning procedures act. If it's gonna affect property, that's the fallback. You go through the zoning procedures act. So in the legal term, it's a CYA, cover your, enter your three-letter phrase there. That we go through this process for the land development ordinance to just give notice, have a public hearing. And so we just do the 15 to 45 days as the guideline to do that.
Your suggestion of having a special called meeting at our next work session,
Correct.
because we don't have the right amount of time to do it before our next council meeting. We'll have a special called meeting on 4/25 along with our work session. And we will get the advertising, put it in the paper by 4/4/24. That will give us plenty of time and meet the deadline of having sufficient advertising for that. And we'll get the advertising on the boards, on the buildings, so that we are following the proper procedure. If that is something we are going to move through with.
Special call meeting on the 25th.
Yeah, right before the regular work session. Do I need to make any official action for that? No. All right.
You just need to advertise it and then get it.
Okay.
You need to advertise the meeting, advertise the public hearing, so.
We have discussed this before, so we all. Yeah.
Do we need to make a motion?
No,
Voted on that before.
the mayor can call it herself, so
I can do what?
you can call the specially called meeting yourself.
So we'll call it a special call meeting for our next work session. I did want to share something with you all. I sat with Joe and Ashley, and Sue was there too the other day. I'm going to hand this out to you. I just want to give you a quick heads up. We're not going to have a big discussion on this. Just want to share with you information very quickly. If you look at this, this is the sewer capacity, and as you all know, we have asked Precision Planning to track the sewer capacity. Right now, you look down at Dial Farm sewer capacity, and you can cross that off. As you can see from the note, C note 3, it was voided. So that is not an issue.
The phase 1 or the phase 2?
Dial Farm sewer capacity reservation May 30th, 2010. Okay, you just cross that. I did not have a chance to ask that. We just met yesterday. Or the day before.
Tuesday and
Tuesday.
I haven't had a chance to update the
Right.
spreadsheet.
And I certainly didn't expect that. There's too much is going on.
Seems like this morning.
I know, right? So with, keeping in mind, we're going up to 250 VRUs. We have, and all of these sewer capacity taps have been purchased. Okay, all of that money has come in. We have remaining, right now, if we're taking all of this into consideration, 600 gallons. Now, down here, it says 11,100. That is not correct. It's 600. Because we have up here at the top, State Road 81 investments, October 4th, 2017. I'm going to be meeting with the county and county commissioner, and this is the county planner. And they have there are a number of taps that are in flux. And we are going to have a discussion on that and come to a resolution on that. That's 42 taps at what, 250 each, so 42, 21 times 5, 1,050, right? Gallons. Or so, or 10,000, yeah, 10,000, yeah, 10,500. So once that meeting occurs, we've already put in a phone call for it, and we're gonna not meet this next week with the following. There may be a possibility that we'll be back up to the 11,100, but right now, these have all been purchased. We have to come to a resolution and figure out what is going on there, and I just wanted to give you an update on that. And as soon as we have that meeting, I will let you know. Okay, so that's it for the PRUs, right? Yeah.
Yes.
All right, we will move on to the credit card statement. You all had that already. Some people asked some questions. Are there any other questions about that? Okay.
Well,
Oh, well. Okay. Okay.
I'm kind of looking through it a little bit hard than I feel like I should have, but why are there any gas charges in here? Is this not the gas card? Is there
No.
a different one?
We have wets for gas cards.
Can we get a copy of this too, or no?
Sure we can.
Yeah, I can start doing that.
Absolutely.
maybe if I have like a preference for what I'd like to see that goes along with this,
Mhm.
is that something I should take up with you here or? And I'll give an example, like, the way some of the supplies and things are marked. It's not clear, it may just say for City Hall.
Okay.
And,
Like it-
and the receipt may not be clear on what was purchased.
Okay.
So, I mean, I would like to see our receipts reflect that and, you know, whether they just turned over and right on the back that we got. Well, I know in one case, there was one that said Roach for the, for the sewer.
Road.
Yes, because we used the safety road for the ponds. That's what I like to see.
Okay.
So, you know.
Yeah, I can ask.
So
Go
it's,
ahead.
We have a form that we can fill out with it. So each receipt, it kind of has like a description,
Okay.
where it was purchased, the price. And we can like fill in what it was. And then I could have one of those for each receipt. If the receipt isn't explaining well enough, we can do that. If that would be helpful. It's just gonna be a bigger packet when I send it to you guys, but.
it's not so much that I need it in the packet, but what I'm looking at is the fact that our bookkeeping, if we've got that reflected in there, then if there are questions, we have that information. It also provides information, like I noticed we buy a whole lot of water.
Mhm.
And you don't know where the water goes, and it's using that as
You're
an
looking at
example.
budgetary reasons.
Right.
Being able to break it down.
Right, so that we break it down and we have a clearer picture of what we're spending where. That's how we avoid waste. That's how we avoid spending more than we need to be spending, is by knowing where we're spending.
Sure.
So, yeah, you know, things of that nature. What I would be looking for.
Just so I'm clear, how would you like to see it? Would you like to see where I'm charging it to, or would you just like to see?
I want it where you have a clear picture of where you need to charge it.
Okay, okay,
Where if you're the bookkeeper, you have a clear picture where you already kind of know where to put it. Or say somebody picked up water and they picked up 15 cases and they put 5 in this building and 5 at City Hall and 5 for Public Works. Those may be 3 different departments,
yeah.
you know, and it may all be on the same receipt, but that way it breaks it down so that you can put it in the right department so that then we'll, next year, when we're building budget, it's a whole lot easier to make sure we've got a more accurate budget.
No problem. Any other questions on that? Okay, let's move forward. We're gonna go ahead and talk about a chief alone. Joe was going to give us the basics, what it looks like our sewer plan is going to cost, how that's broken down with expenses, and answer any of the questions that y'all have.
How can we get it done for free? Yeah.
Ms. Rachel, if I had that information, I wouldn't share it. I would save it for my community.
Look,
It may be for the low price, we can that way.
and I'm just saying.
So without going into the deep weeds on how you got to the fact that you have a commodity that people want, which is public sewer, based on all kinds of conditions, and that you all have retained us to design a expansion to your existing LAS. And then we have been updating you on the cost to construct. And since this has been, I have extra to say on. The longer it goes in the construction cycle, the costs are going to go up. They rarely go down enough to make a difference. So you all, in the effort to, you've made a policy decision to move forward with the sewer expansion. Is my understanding, you now need to obtain additional funds to do it. Because you don't have sufficient, my understanding, you don't have 3.4 million sitting in the bank. If you did, that would be a lovely position to have. This would be a very short discussion. But most communities of our size, your size, do not. So what we have done was I met with the mayor, Maxine, and I got some information from them, and I put together, the mayor wanted the drive-out price, which is sort of what the previous gentleman did with the paving, that was a soup to nuts drive-out. So what you have in front of you is page 4 of the GFA application, which is a very straightforward way to put it, the project budget. And then the back sheet was the most recent, probable construction cost, which is the engineer way of saying that's our best guess, but we're not cost estimators. So I took those numbers and put it in the front page to give you all an idea of how much the drive-out price for this project would be at the present moment. How much you all have that you have in your, you have in the bank that you would be willing to put toward it from local funds would make the amount you have to borrow lesser, which GFA likes to see these days. And plus, it would make your debt service lower. And so we did that with the idea of that GFA has certain timeframes when they will accept applications, and then they will consider them and approve and vote on them. And the next, we may have mentioned this previously, but the next window would be the first for submission. And after that, it goes, they're done quarterly. And every quarter they push the, so if you all, if y'all want to move forward with this project and obtain financing, if you wait, these numbers will get changed but if, that's a policy decision for you all. A lot of my clients are going through a similar situation with funding their projects. GFA does have 2 pots of money for water and wastewater. They have a state fund, which is called the Georgia Fund, and those are bond proceeds. Then they have what's called the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, which is federal money that's passed through GFA as a state agency, and then it's you apply for it. If you accept it, it's a lower interest rate, which right now, effective next in May, the Georgia Fund interest rates are 3.35%. And then the Clean Water SRF is 2.85. So now, as a side note, there are things that cities can do to get interest rate breaks, but I don't think there's enough chance to do that in the time frame. What I would suggest that y'all consider pursuing a plan first designation from DCA. That can show percentage point off.
Okay.
And my committee is about to do that once we finish our urban redevelopment plan. That's the next thing we're going to do is get planned first. Because the percentage point's a big deal. For those of you who deal with finance, that's a lot of money of the life of the loan.
Right.
What is it called?
Plan first. It's through the Georgia Department of Community Affairs.
Yeah.
DCA, and they have, there's a process you have to go through. You have to demonstrate that you're using sound planning practices. And I think you probably could do that with your comprehensive plan and the town center efforts And if you're successful, then that would get for you. It's a designation for a number of years, which would get you a percentage point off of certain state funds, which would be very helpful for the next project.
So not just for this project, but for future
Where you
projects.
just have to keep that designation. You have to show that. Now, you can also go with what's called water first, but since you all are in a water utility, that's not really eligible. And if Walton County was, it still wouldn't help you with this because you were the bar. So just throw that nugget out there for y'all to think about. That it would probably be worth it, because if you move forward in this process and this plan is up to run, and we're back here in a couple of years having a similar discussion, and you want to go to the next phase, those numbers get bigger. So a percentage point would be a big deal.
Yeah.
Especially for future ratepayers. So circling back around, so the most, Mayor, would you like me to go through the numbers? But do you want the numbers I presented as far as construction costs and other figures?
Is everybody comfortable with those numbers or?
And I can explain why we got to where we got.
Yeah, why don't we?
Okay. Well, Jim Sunka, who some of you may know, he's the project engineer in our Monroe office. He put together the opinion of costs. He's the person that's been leading the charge on the design side of this. Jim also has been with us a long time, like me, and he worked on the previous project. So he is aware of some things that going on, and he was the
Has
lead.
he included that in this, like those two? Filtration?
Yes, this is everything to get you up to 100,000, from 50,000 to 100,000 gallons of capacity. This is the everything price as of March of this year.
Even some of the repairs?
My understanding is
All right.
it's everything.
Right.
Because once again, I don't know all the details, but it would be whatever we need to get you 100,000 gallon, this price would involve. And this is our best guess at the time.
Okay.
And part of that, we also added the contingency of roughly $294,000. So the construction cost at the time you put this together was $2,947,500. And then there's a 10% contingency, which would handle overages. And the engineering inspection fee, I know that seems like a lot. That includes the cost of the grant, of the loan application, environmental documents, which we can talk about in a minute, as one of your other discussion points. And then the construction, administration, observation, same sort of services that engineers would provide during construction, because this is a 20-month time period once you get started. So that's a certain amount of time allotted each week to answer questions, RFIs, come out here, look around, work through problems. I know it seems like a lot of money, but it's what it would take to get through this. And then we also added just a little 15,000, which I like to do one of these for administrative legal costs. So it brings your grand project total of $3,447,250. So the good news with GFA is you only have to pay back what you borrow. So for some tremendous set of circumstances, you don't end up drawing your GFA loan amount down. You don't have to pay back, and you have 6 months once it closes out to start, because they assume that you're bringing your customers online, that you're going to have revenue coming in. So that's the project budget. That's the drive out price to do this project at the moment. So then the bottom column where it has the red is you take the project amount, put it at the bottom, you subtract out local funds that a town or city, county is willing to contribute for the project. And then once you have that done, you have the loan amount. So, and those numbers, that's why the big red is there. I'm not sure. I put those in as placeholders. This would all be massaged based on what your bank account and what you have in your non-ARPA funds that you want to contribute, leaving you some funds for emergencies,
Right.
so forth and so on. And that number would be probably decided prior to submission if you authorize, which leaves you requesting right now to borrow about $2.4 million. So what would happen if you all move forward and authorizing us to submit it? Because it's a federal project, federally funded project, there are the application, there's cost involved in doing that, meaning getting all the financial information together. getting all together, sitting down, filling out the form, getting it all packaged up, sending it, and then there's gonna be countless questions from GFO. When they get to underwriting, like underwriting anything, I'll step in and say, once it's submitted, it'll sit there while they process it. Then they'll assign an underwriter to it. And then they'll start going through your numbers. Then they'll start calling and asking for more information. As underwriters do.
Yeah.
And then like anything else, if it passes underwriting, it goes to their version of credit committee. And then if it passes that, it goes for the board for formal consideration and adoption. But until you can get to, past underwriting, it'll sit there until they're satisfied and then moves. Meanwhile, while that goes in, there's some documentation that you have to submit to satisfy the EPA and the EPD requirements for environmentals. Call it state environment review process. So some of the information we have on hand from the previous application, but a lot of it we're having to start from scratch. This is going to generate a board about yay big that has to go through the information requested from all these different agencies, historic, wetlands, fisheries, migratory birds, all those sort of things have to be considered. Is this project going to have an adverse impact on the environment? And if so, what steps are being taken to mitigate it? And the document that engineers prepare, it's called different things. Environment review document, environmental information document. That gets submitted and it goes through EPD review. And there's back and forth. And then at some point along the way, we'll have to hold a public hearing, have a chance for people to put it on the website, have people a chance to comment, and have to come through. And if whatever comments may come from the public, we have to incorporate it into the final document. And then go through the advertising process to get what's called a NONSI, which is a notice of no significant impact. I just went through this with social service. So, I mean, I'm going through it with a couple other clients. So it's just the process you have to go through. The end result is, if you go this route, is the interest rates are better, which makes a big deal, $2.5 billion, thereabouts. And that you also set the groundwork for future projects. So part of that motion that the mayor mentioned is, if y'all choose to go forward, is to authorize signing of everything and then allowing us to do the grant and then the updated environmental document. So that those kind of run in tandem, so that if you get a positive decision from the board, the CERT process is mostly done, so there's not a lag. Because once you sign, you're approved, everybody's happy, you sign the loan documents, they go off to GFA to get countersigned. Once they come back, that's considered a live loan. So then you can start, they don't quite tell you that in the letter, but you can start drawing down funds at that point. So, but they won't send that part back until you've cleared CERT. So part of what you would be engaging us to do is to manage all that process. And then work with your staff, because there's going to be a lot of financial information I'm going to ask for, and there may be some hard discussions about, because they're going to not lay your budget open and see if you have sufficient resources to pay them back, like any financial lender.
We're gonna have to look at fee schedules. We're gonna have to look at rates. We're charging for the sewer plant now.
Yeah.
Tap fees, just the rate citizen fee. But as we've kind of talked about auditing all the processes that we're using for the city now, we'll be able to do all that. And fortunately, I think the first time around that we've considered doing this, it would be good to have guidance.
So I have a question. What is the term for this type of loan? It says on here that these interest rates are based on a 20-year amortization period. Is that what we're looking at? Is a 20-year loan? Did they set the term?
Now you can request it. I mean, you can request a shorter. You can go to 30 years. And you can. I mean, that's if y'all have discussed it and say this is what. And you can also, once you see it, if you change your mind, just know that the shorter, like the shorter time period, the payments are going to be
Right.
And then the longer they'll be lower, but then your interest is greater. So it's depending on how you want to handle the debt.
Yeah, we definitely don't want more interest, so, sure.
Can you pay off a Jeep loan before the end loan date?
Yes,
Okay. Okay.
yes.
Then you make extra payments.
You should be able to, but, well, I'll say that, I mean,
Debt penalties, Jim?
penalties for,
I mean, I've looked at
Early
hundreds of these
payment.
things.
Yeah.
Early.
yeah.
That's what I'm wondering.
I would have to look that up. I have,
I can look at it.
yeah, Jeep documents, I mean,
They're standard, but
Jay's firm should have reviewed the one from Social Circle before we just did a water. For those, several of them. So that's, I mean, that would be one to consider, but then where it's set up now is you tell them a bank account and they start withdrawing money out of it. Regularly.
Right. Like a,
Right, Matthew?
Not work to their bottom, but that's even better. So then, well, let me just, if y'all in a financial position to make extras, that would be wonderful. Most communities,
Yeah, because there's.
especially if you're going to take on additional debt for your next phase, and you're.
Right.
What I would say, I was thinking about this driving up here is that when we get to the point of this, y'all discussing rate structures and how you want to do that, please consider that it's, it's not just, it's the cost of what does it take to collect the sewer, treat the sewer, and safely dispose of it to start it. All the costs involved with that, and as you grow your system, you can have other costs you need to add, so your rate structure needs to reflect that. Same time, you need to be able to sit in some money away and make this a replacement fund, because pump stations are gonna go down. All these things are gonna have to happen, and if you want that money there, a lot of, now GFA doesn't do this, but some funding agencies make you put together a sinking fund. If you had a bond, if this is a bond issue, you'd have to basically put a year's payments away or accrue it, so that in case something happened,
Right,
you can still, because they're gonna want to get paid.
yeah, right, yeah.
So, so you have to be thinking about that with your future rate structure.
And the other thing is, this is one GFA loan, but down the road, you may need another GFA loan, so
Oh, we
you're
will.
stacking on top of each other. And so you don't want to front load payments on this one. If you need another one, you can just smooth out.
Same thing, put it in the
Handle it
account,
down
get
the
some
road.
interest going on, and see it working capital.
And the other thing to say is that they reserve the right to pull your audits and look and see if you're meeting their debt service coverage requirements.
Mhm.
And if for some reason the community is not, then that would definitely limit any community. I'm not gonna name names, but there's one in particular that I know very well that of getting another loan, because then you have to show that you have to meet those, it's 1.05 right now. They really want higher.
Mhm.
So that you're having enough cash coming in and enough to not only cover the debt, but any debt you may have in the system. So it's just something as a policy decision. And we just went through this and we had to raise our rates significantly.
Yeah.
Because we had a couple of really big expenses and then we depleted our reserves. So they look at that as a debt service of 0.22. And suddenly they're like, what's going on? And they may not be as willing to, because we're in the process of asking for some additional funding for a project in my community. And I've also cautioned one of my clients I meet with tomorrow that you just need to prepare. They may come back and say, you're gonna have to raise your rates. We don't know yet. We haven't done that level of detail. I'm not trying to scare, I'm just trying to be realistic that,
right.
especially the last Social Circle kind of had a similar issue because they have a lot of things out there, and I was sitting in on a call where they talked to them about, you guys need to look at these things. So I mean, communities are facing this because it's a very popular funding source.
Right.
So
What should be paying for itself?
We worked out the other day, I think it was 20 years, right? Didn't
we did some numbers based on 20 years, Mayor.
Was whatever, you have it written down here, you remember? Yeah.
Or did you just?
It was, well, it's changed since you and I, but it's
Okay.
at 2.85% starting in August of 2026. That was my best guess. It's about 13,000 a month, 13,350 a month, more or less. So in the meantime, you all would need to say, all right, I've got to have sufficient revenue coming in to cover that, plus my operating costs, plus putting money aside.
Right,
So how you get to that is a separate discussion, but it's one that you want to have. With, and maybe your current your rate structure as you add customers. One thing from our conversation the other day is that the commercial fee of $60 is per ERU. It's not flat rate per customer.
Right.
So if you have a large enough user, that's not going to be, shouldn't be straight 60. So
Yeah,
if y'all move forward, one thing I would suggest is y'all get with Walton County Water and see if they can provide some user data from every sewer customer you have.
that's what we're doing.
We sit down and look, if you have it, and see, because there are different ways to do sewer rates. This way is the most straightforward for a starting system.
Yeah.
Because you don't sell water, so you don't really know how much water you're selling.
Yeah.
And these numbers are based on a household using like 5,000 gallons a month, based on, and some do, some don't. I mean, but anyway, so so that might be something that you all want to consider
Okay.
on how you type, but having that user data would help a lot, because it would, I've seen how much the plant generates, but it'd be nice to see
Absolutely.
how much, especially with all these new users coming online. If you keep the same rate structure, if they're using 500 gallons a month or a day, that's 2 ERUs, that's $120. But if you're using 5,000, then as long as you're billing that, not billing 60,
Right.
you'd be okay. That's where you just kind of have to, you as a utility owner, just want to be sure that you're getting all the revenue that you're entitled to, if everything works properly.
Right. Absolutely. Especially since we don't have any moneymakers.
Correct.
One question, Joe, like going through the application process, kind of what's our ballpark out of pocket that we're gonna have come right up front to get to this application?
Good question, Maxine. I provided the mayor an estimate
Okay,
of around $9,000 to do the application and all the follow-up, and to do about 15 to 20 to do the environmental document. But I also took that money and put it, you could pay that out of your own funds and say, we paid that and we're good. Or you could reimburse yourself. A lot of smaller communities do that, but that becomes something y'all decide if you want to do. You may have to borrow a little bit more money, but there's different ways to do that. But that money, in order to get into this process,
we got.
you got to do it. I mean, if you all as the agency might could do the application together, but if you have someone helping you, it makes it a lot easier, because we've done a lot of these.
I'm gonna get it right the first time.
And we can start, once council, if they decide, well, when council decides to obligate the ARPA funds towards the sewer expansion, they can start using those ARPA funds, because those ARPA funds have to be used before 2026, right?
Correct. In the end of 2026, all this has to be expended. And you're supposed to have them obligated by the end of this year, which means the next report, if council chooses to obligate those,
Mhm.
the next report that you send in to the treasury,
True.
just there's a report you fill out, and you just show that what's being expended on sewer, and they're happy.
Great.
So yes, you can do that, and then you just count that as one of your project costs. I didn't put in here the engineering dollars that you've already expended, because I figured that's just part of, you could recoup those if you wanted, but it makes it easier just to move forward with what you need.
Okay. We just have, does anybody have any more questions for Mr. Walton?
No.
He will not be at the council meeting in 2 weeks, okay? If between now and then you have any questions,
So if I have any questions, I'll email him.
yeah, absolutely.
And also, if I may ask while I'm here, the April 25th work session, special call meeting, I'm supposed to be in Perry for the GMA Board of Directors meeting. So if you just say, if you want someone here from, I can find somebody to come to cover that one item on because that would be the approval of it by then.
From the ERU. No, that would.
It would be the Fed county, yes.
Yeah.
If you just, please think, okay,
We'll think about it. If something pops up before then,
yeah.
then I will contact
Because I
you.
have my hotel reservations and but anyway, just let me know. And I will,
I
if
think we'll be okay, but,
you need me, I'll be here.
all right. Should be a song.
If you need me,
Good.
I just wanted what was in my head, but yes, if you have any other questions on this, just let me know, but I've got a growing file on this, and if you do authorize us, we can start the application and the cert pretty close together, and while all that's running together, so I'll save you some time.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Joe, guys? No? Does that amount of money make anybody else nervous?
No.
No?
Yeah.
I do actually have a question. The USDA thing that we talked about previously. Loan that, was it
Yes.
a loan or a grant?
They have loan grant accommodations.
Okay, and we're looking at that possibly for the next phase, correct?
Correct, because I will say that in the return fees, they do a lot of those too. I'm not asking you to call them, but the process that go through the application to get to that point is lengthy, complex. Plus, it also depends on does the farm bill get approved? So there's a lot of, you just get it in a hopper and wait. Then they still make you go ahead and do a bond for the funds. So when our opinion is in the interest of getting this done in the reasonable future, this is the way to go. You could also start the application process for USDA, have conversations with them about the next phase while you're at it.
Yeah.
Because it's amazing how many forms they have and guides and documents. But that money can be 40-year money. So that's a policy decision as well. And the interest rates depend on a lot of conditions, and there may be some things where it's favorable. It's really good for a lot of communities that are trying to get going, because they will loan large amounts of money if they get it appropriated, but you're also kind of competing with other jurisdictions for how much money's in that cycle. So, I mean, I would say that was definitely worth investigating for the next one. And there's the bond market may be competitive by then, but we just looked at that with my project in Zebulon. The bonds, we were getting back like 5.5, 6. So you start looking at those payments versus this, the biggest and G for the please let us stay in the pool
Yeah.
at 2.8.
Yeah.
You know, that's just, we couldn't do that to our ratepayers. Plus yeah. So it would be good to do that. It would be good to go ahead and think about that as soon as you get this application and you're waiting on what's being constructed to start thinking about the next phase, because I don't think people are going to stop asking y'all for sewer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To be honest, is it gonna go that far?
Jurisdictions have done multiple phases at the same time, so it's possible to do that.
This is something I want to.
Is this the one, RD guarantee, is that it?
Yes,
Okay.
well, yes. They have a water and wastewater program. They also have guarantee. Yes, that's fine.
Wondering if it's
Yes.
just a loan guarantees.
Yes. So yes, that's it. So if that's something y'all interested in, we start talking to the local program rep pretty soon. And then kind of get those rolling.
Thank you for helping us navigate this, Joe.
You're welcome.
The first time around, and when I say, does it make me nervous? It doesn't make me nervous, but it makes me realize how happy I am we didn't go to something much bigger, because we probably couldn't afford it. I don't know that we could have gotten the loan and made the payments to pay for something much bigger. And it's just an assumption on my part right now. I haven't looked at the numbers, but I think we're doing the right thing for the citizens by growing slowly.
Do we have any idea how we're going to make this payment as of right now? Like, so we have to start making this payment within 6 months of completing the project? Or 6 months of starting like our first draw?
Later,
No, complete the project, because they understand that
Okay,
you
gotta get.
have to have revenue coming in to be able to pay them back.
okay.
So there's a delay on that. So you all, as a policy decision, need to talk about this 50,000 gallons and. So anyway, so to have, who's eligible, because there are things you can do to get them, without getting ahead of myself, there are things you can do to show a revenue stream is gonna come in, because you can show that we'll have no trouble with this, because that's part of what they ask you in the application, is new customers.
Right, and so paying this large payment, I'm like, how are we gonna do that? So is it possible that, and this may not even make any sense, for us to, there's plenty of people that want to come into our downtown area to build. If somebody was to start construction before this is even done, so that when it is done, they're like on the system, is that a possibility?
I spoke to Jimmy today because there has been discussion about, right now, I believe that when someone puts in a permit to build, that's when they can get a tap. Jimmy said that it's more typical that when someone does land clearing or gets that land clearing disturbance permit,
Mhm.
it's at that point that they can reserve or purchase maps, because they're going to be putting in the infrastructure of the building.
Right,
If we have 50,000 gallons, that's 2,000 taps at 250 ERUs. 200 taps times 6,000 a tap comes out to, this can't be right, $1.2 million. That can go to help pay off another loan, or can go towards getting another loan as showing that kind of cash in the bank.
okay,
So there's lots of ways to do it. I've had lots of discussions with Joe about this. So I'm very comfortable with the idea of doing this. Also, as we're working on the budget, we're keeping in mind, we're going to need a payment like this pay.
Right.
Mhm.
So we're not going to engage in something like this and not have the money to pay a payment. That would be just suicide.
And you said that was 200 taps?
Yeah.
2,000 taps.
It's 200 taps. 50,000 gallons at
Oh.
250 ERUs is 200 taps.
Sorry.
Okay.
2,000.
200.
Potential tax,
Right.
but to
Because if it's commercial, it could be different. It could be 500 gallons a day.
Yeah.
So it just depends on,
And with the mixed use developments you have coming, I'm just looking at some information provided.
Yeah.
If they're mixing units, there's gonna have to be some discussions with your Walton County on how to set that up, because the residential meters are built at a different rate than commercial, but basically you would need 53 ERUs a month to make your net. So however, I mean, so I think that once we do the numbers.
Yeah.
There should be sufficient revenue to make that, but I'll say it again, just keep in mind, it's not just about making you know, it's about running a healthy system so that you
having
have some reserves and replacing things, and eventually you're gonna have staff. Sometime down the road, you're gonna have, if you get a bigger plant, you're gonna have other people that you need to have, and salaries and benefits and vehicles and all those things. You just have to plan like any other enterprise. Because remember, this is an enterprise that you're designed for you to make sufficient revenue to cover your costs and set money aside. And then if you have extra in a rainy day fund, well, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So you don't want to do it to not get enough revenue to make it work.
Right.
So, I mean, that's the one place we as cities have where that can help, because it's run like a business.
Okay. Thank
Thank
you, Joe.
you.
Sure.
All right, let's wrap this up. This is one of the longest meetings. I'm kidding. We're gonna talk about, what are we gonna talk about? Obligating ARPA. Didn't we already talk about obligating ARPA? No, obligating ARPA. What that means, guys, is that we have to officially make a motion to obligate ARPA towards our sewer plant expansion. And we need to do that at the next meeting, so I will ask for a motion at that meeting, okay? The next thing is authorizing the PI to submit the application to achieve an environmental documents. That's all the stuff that we just talked about right now. But we have to authorize PPI to move forward with that, if that is what you all decide to do. And then the last thing on there is say that again? Yes, Georgia City resolution. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
the ARPA funds on PPI's documentation that Joe provided us this evening, has ARPA funds at 500,000. Is that, we have more
We have-
ARPA funds
I
than
think we
that.
have more than that, don't we? No, it's 257 something each time, wasn't it?
I looked this up from
Yeah.
my page, so, I mean, we'll verify that
Yeah.
before, I mean, I just know that that's number came off your original, I don't know if you expended that, whatever you got left in that account,
Okay.
if you're obligating it, if you haven't spent it, then it's just obligating it, just basically says you're gonna spend it on that.
That's the ARPA funds, and there are more than $500,000 in the money market sewer fund. But like Joe just said, it's a good idea to keep some in reserve for repairs, operations, whatever the contingency plan.
That's where I was getting at, is where is that extra money at? Okay, thank
All
you.
for money market. Okay. Okay, so we move on. I'm gonna go ahead and let Rachel talk about this, if you, we're just gonna do the resolution, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Georgia Cities Week is coming up April 21st through the 27th. Georgia Cities Week is something sponsored by GMA to showcase and celebrate the city and our many services. One of the steps to participate in Georgia Cities Week is to adopt a resolution, and the resolution, I will read it to you because you can see it. I've provided a copy. But it's just to say that we're going to recognize our employees and our staff and our administration and to participate in this with the rest of us. On the GMA.
And so we will have that on the agenda at the next meeting also. And that is it. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Suggestions?
This is crazy one.
I know, right? I want to share this with everybody. Walton County will be having a groundbreaking celebration for the new park in Walnut Grove on April 19th. At 11 a.m. and refreshments to follow. More information, you can call this number, and I'm going to ask our city clerk to really put this on the city website so we can share this with all the citizens in Walnut Grove. They're very excited. Council, if you guys are able to make it, that would be wonderful. They have invited us specifically. Okay. And that is it. I think that's it for.
Website, Facebook page, or both.
We'll put it on everything.
Okay.
Yeah. Put it on everything. Okay, any other comments, questions?
I do have something about the pollinator garden.
Okay,
The Walnut Grove Lions Club want to donate a bird bath to go into our garden. Is it okay to have Public Works do that when they have time to do it? Collect
the
it?
Lions Club is donating it?
Yes.
What does it take for Public Works to do? What is their role in
Go
that?
get it and put it in the garden.
So you're gonna be donating the money to the
No, the
city?
bird, I need them to pick up the bird bath and take it to the garden.
Yeah, I can talk with Brian about that.
Do we know what it looks like?
I can get a picture.
Yeah, I'd like to see that too. Yeah, I think that needs to, yeah, let's, yeah, I mean, that's a great idea. That's wonderful. You guys did
Will they be like maintaining it and keeping
The Lions
the
Club
water
has
clean?
agreed to, when we agreed to put in the pollinator garden, Lions Club agreed to help with the maintenance I'm not a gardener, so this don't make sense to me, but I'm going to help them because I'm a member of the Lions Club.
Yeah.
But deadheading,
Mhm.
general maintenance, I'm not a gardener, I'll be with somebody who is.
Okay,
You know.
okay, great. Thank you. That's great. Yeah, thank you.
But we do need some help just getting it and getting it to the garden.
Where you
So that's concrete, huh?
At Mayor Moore's house.
Oh, okay.
And he's the president of the Lions Club, and he has room to store it. So it's there.
Okay. All right. Any other comments, questions? Jay, is there anything else for us? Joe, can you think of anything? Okay, Kimberly, you good? Good. Okay, all right.
Motion to
Can I call for a
adjourn.
motion to adjourn?
Yeah.
One,
So moved.
second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you guys. Good night. Thank you for coming, everyone.